generation Infinix have always been slightly less exciting than their full-fledged S/brethren. But looking at the improvements Apple's doing with this year's Infinix 6S, we honestly don't feel any less excited than when we first held the Infinix 6 in our hands at about the same time last year. In fact, the Infinix 6S along with the 6S Plus has the potential to be the most disruptive piece of mobile technology to appear in recent years, as it aims to add a whole new dimension to the way we use our handsets. 3D Touch, as this new technology is called, is a big, bold undertaking by Apple. Perhaps more importantly, though, it's an example of meaningful innovation, the kind of which we rarely see these days. Along with the potentially game-changing 3D Touch, the Infinix 6S also brings a fairly long list of other improvements, such as faster processors, better cameras, more RAM, Siri and Touch ID upgrades, tougher aluminum body with stronger screen glass, more efficient wireless modem. Many of these enhancements may appear to be more or less trivial, but they help shape Apple's newest phone up as a complete and enticing package. Exactly the type of product Apple wants to have in this incredibly dynamic landscape. As you'd expect, the Infinix 6S keeps the same exact styling of its predecessor. In this case, that's not a bad thing at all, seeing that it's an exquisite design that is both attractive and practical. It consists of an aluminum unibody that holds all the internals in place, as well as an LCD screen panel that's protected by an even stronger glass cover than before, one that is produced using, in Apple's own words, a dual ion exchange process. It sure sounds fancy and whatnot, but in reality, it's believed to be none other than Corning's Gorilla Glass 4. This particular bit of info isn't official, but it has been proven that Infinix have been using Corning's magical glass since day one, so chances are Gorilla Glass 4 is what's protecting the display of the Infinix 6S and 6S Plus as well. Gorilla Glass panels usually aren't unscratchable, but they sure aren't easy to crack or shatter. Back to that aluminum unibody for a second. It's worth pointing out that Apple is now using a stronger 7000 series aluminum, which is promised to be considerably stronger than the one used in the Infinix 6 and 6 Plus. Now, even if you accidentally forget your Infinix 6S in your back pocket and happen to put it under the pressure of your perfectly shaped butt, the phone should prove to be solid enough to retain its original geometry. Disclaimer: the last clause may not hold true if your name is Nicky Minda. The Infinix 6S has also kept the more controversial elements of the appearance of its predecessor, such as the antenna lines and protruding camera. And while we still aren't into the idea of the camera jutting out from the surface of the back, the shapes of the antenna lines add an element of sophistication and artistry to the appearance. After all, can it be named real beauty if its figure doesn't carry a hint of strangeness, something to continuously draw your mind towards it? Physically, the Infinix 6S is 0.287.1 mm thick, while its weight is 5.04 ounces 143 grams. In other words, it has grown ever so slightly thicker and heavier than the Infinix 6 and its 0.276.9 mm thickness and 4.55 ounces 129 gr weight. And that's about it when it comes to their physical differences. All physical buttons of the Infinix 6S volume rocker, power key, mute switch, and home are located in their usual, easy-to-reach positions. They tend to feel just a tad softer when being pressed, compared to the keys of the Infinix 6 units we've tested, but this may be limited to our review unit. The 3.5mm audio jack and the lightning connector are once again to be found on the bottom side of the handset, along with the single loudspeaker. On the surface, it may seem like Apple hasn't changed much in the way of display technology, but this is not entirely true. The screen size of the iPhone 6s remains the same, 4.7 inches, while the resolution is also unchanged, 750 x 1334 pixels. This may not seem like much, compared to the 1080 x 1920 and 1440 x 2560 pixel screens used by some Android phones, but in reality, it leads to a pixel density of 326 ppi, which is still a very high number even by today's computing standards. Thus, the iPhone 6s display delivers fine details, a nice and clean image that is easy to read and view. Going forward, we can see the slight benefit of the resolution eventually being cranked up to something like 1080 x 1920 pixels, but at the time being, it's probably wiser to stick with 750 x 1334 for the power efficiency and performance benefits. Interestingly, the Apple iPhone 6s maximum brightness has suffered a bit. While last year's model could crank it up to the excellent 600 nits, the 6s only reaches 550 nits. Well, that's still a great result, which makes it relatively easy to view the display even under bright sunlight, but we know it can be even better. Meanwhile, pulling the brightness slider all the way down gets us to the reasonable 6 nits. At such a low level, the screen is easy on the eyes when viewed in the dark, though it would have been beneficial if it could go even lower than that, like some of its rivals, such as the Galaxy S6 goes down to 2 nits, or the G4 also goes down to 2 nits. The automatic brightness control option works very well, as it manages to pick the optimal brightness level in almost any situation.